Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the interview. Could you please share a little bit about yourself and your work?
Hello, so I am Yana Tushingham. I own Yana Tushingham Psychology, and I guess a little bit about myself before I sort of get into the work side of things. So yeah, I guess as a person, what do I enjoy? So it'd be things like, I like to be outside, so definitely nature I love to exercise, so I quite regularly go to the gym, running, swimming, tennis, anything like that, I'm up for it. So yeah, as a whole, I would say I'm quite adventurous and up for quite a lot. But yeah, in terms of my work then, so yeah, within my work, so I am a psychologist in Australia and a life coach in the UK. So I mainly work with adults with sort of anxiety, depression, or just general want to sort of enhance their life. And I say sort of grow, reach their potential. That's sort of how I describe it. So I guess like with the anxiety side of things, obviously there's a range of anxiety. So I might work with sort of generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, specific phobias, for example. And also I sort of work with people who want to manage their neurodiversity as well. So things like autism, ADHD, we go through sort of potential strategies that could help with that diagnosis, or even if it's not diagnosed, but you feel like there is sort of that undiagnosed, maybe ADHD, for example, and just want support from a therapy stance, then yeah, that's the sort of thing I like to provide support in and help people with. So I guess, my stance is very much I like to feel sort of person-centered, so I like to kind of share ideas and bounce off of one another with the client. So, I don't want ideas just to come from me, because that's not how to get sort of the most out of therapy, if you like. So yeah, I like to make it collaborative, person-centered. I like to think I'm compassionate and non-judgmental. I guess in the sense of, anything you tell me, I'm not going to judge, right? We all have our implications, and that's okay. We just got to kind of hear them, work with it, and maybe find ways on how to move forward if that's something you're looking, for. I also provide therapy for anyone who simply is, having a difficult time, maybe stress, maybe adjusting to a new job, a new relationship, maybe going through a separation, maybe having relationship difficulties, things like that. So yeah, my work really does vary. So if you did have any questions, whether I work with sort of your presentation or what your sort of main difficulties are, then obviously just drop me a message through my website or my social medias on Facebook or Instagram. So it's Yana Tushingham Psychology. So yeah, I guess as a whole, I use evidence-based approaches. So whether that's sort of CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, ACT, a bit of schema therapy, if relevant, DBT, positive psychology, things like that. So that is kind of, how I would approach sort of sessions. And depending on your presentation, we work together to pick the sort of best approach for yourself. And how is sort of sessions held? So for my Australian clients, it's very much over the telephone if they would prefer, or video call. And sort of UK clients, I do a bit of face-to-face work as well, as well as telehealth. So yeah, thank you.
Why did you focus on this specific niche in your work?
So I guess with this one, it's, I focused on this niche because, I've seen firsthand how mental health difficulties or just general life stresses can impact people's life. It can affect work, relationships, hobbies, engaging in them. It can affect a lot, right? So I want to be there for someone to help them understand how this is having an impact on their life, in sort of a way where it's kind of building up that self-awareness rather than from a judgmental point of view, and then working with that. Okay, realistically, how can we move forward in this situation, or with what you're experiencing? Can we start with sort of baby steps and work from there? But I guess as a whole, I like this niche because I feel like I really understand and kind of really can put myself in the other person's shoes with how they're feeling, and that just makes me so much more passionate, so much more kind of wanting to help others with these sort of difficulties. And I just really love, obviously it's no guarantee with therapy, but I just love how me as a psychologist, life coach, I'm able to see the potential in people, and it's kind of my job, to help those people see their full potential in themselves as well, because some people might not recognize that. And obviously, work needs to be done from the client as well, so maybe implementing kind of techniques outside of our sessions. But yeah, I'm just really there to guide you, and this niche I kind of have with mental health disorders and just general sort of life growth and reaching your potential is just something I feel very passionate about, and just love helping people who are sort of going through that.
Who are the people who would benefit most from your work?
So yeah, some people who would benefit from my work. I mean, you don't have to have a specific diagnosis as such. It can be sort of symptoms of maybe mental health difficulties. So like I've mentioned, anxiety, depression, can be burnout, stress, can be just sort of life stresses coming up and making you feel a certain way that you're not maybe particularly liking. So yeah, I guess it's for people who are just generally struggling with whatever they're struggling with, but also not only that, for people who maybe aren't struggling, maybe in a place where they're kind of like, this feels okay in life, but I want to do more. So they want to reach their potential more and grow more. And I guess there's certain different levels of well-being, right? And it's trying to sort of go as far as you can, realistically, given on what you're experiencing and the situation you're in, things like that. So yeah, my role is to kind of act as, I guess, a personal trainer would, physically in the gym. So I take it as I'm a bit like a personal trainer, but for your mental health. So I'm there to guide you, hold your hand, but ultimately change in action is going to have to come from you, and that's no pressure to do that within our sessions or that duration of when you're having your sessions, but just kind of building that awareness for when you are ready to make that change or whatever it is, adjustment in your life.
How has working in the coaching industry impacted your life and you as a person?
Yeah, this is a big question, because I guess with psychology, I'm always learning. I'm always learning new things, new research is coming out. You're just continuously learning. And because of that, by no means is my personal sort of development been formed and it's staying like that forever. It's still developing. But I guess, what I've learned so far from the industry and how it's sort of impacted me is, I guess, it's taught me how to be resilient. So in the times of adversity, everyone experienced some sort of adversity one way or another. But yeah, learning to be resilient in those times, but also allowing yourself to have time to reflect is equally important. So, I'm a strong believer, if something, adverse has happened in your life, it can be good to have a good cry or, kind of feel a bit down sometimes, because I feel like that's your way of your body healing and letting it out, rather than sort of, I guess, putting it in a bottle and it building sort of over time. And then, you know, when you're ready, you're building that sort of resiliency through coping skills that you've learned over time. And for me personally, that is, you know, like I said at the start, sort of physical exercise, nature, you know, having those as routine activities rather than I'll do it when I feel like it, because it allows me to develop this resiliency and discipline within myself, which then reflects on other areas in my life. So things like, you know, work, relationships, I guess kind of keep working at them, whatever it is, and trying to stick with it, you know, if that thing is serving you. And I guess as a whole, it's just made me so curious about people. You know, I love to ask questions. I like to listen probably more than I like to speak, although some people might disagree. But yeah, it's just made me a whole lot more curious, which I think is a massive beneficial to my mental health and, you know, anyone's sort of well-being in general, because it allows me to have an open mind and be open to maybe new experiences and different perspectives, which really helps me, you know, grow professionally and personally. So yeah.
What do you see as the future of your work and the coaching industry?
I think this question for me is probably broken down into short term, sort of how I see my future in terms of practice and psychological support and coaching support. Broken down into sort of short term and long term sort of goals and how I see that. So I guess short term, the aim is to continue sort of seeing one-to-one clients, and kind of just working on my skills, enjoying that, being really satisfied, which is what I currently am with my work and what I do, because I love it, and I never thought that would come from a job, but I really do. It keeps me mentally engaged, and I'm just always so interested and want to learn more. So I don't think that will ever stop. So I want to, continue seeing one-to-one clients. I guess the sort of longer term goal, you know, broadening my skill set. So bringing in maybe sort of couples therapy or other sort of approaches, you know, like emotion compassion therapy, those sort of skills. And I guess it's overall to break the stigma of therapy, because I feel like it is getting better, but there are, you know, still quite a few people who might think, oh, therapy's, you know, for when you're broken. But I really think it can be really helpful as well as a preventative factor, right? So, you know, you're learning these tools. So when adversity does come, because obviously with life we don't know when it will, you have those, you know, healthy or helpful coping mechanisms to fall back on to maintain your well-being. Yes, it doesn't mean you'll find that situation easy breezy, but you'll be able to sort of navigate it a lot better maybe, and have long-term sort of positive effects, building up that confidence in yourself and like I said before, resiliency as well. So yeah, I do want to break down that stigma of therapy isn't, you know, if you have issues or feel broken. It's also a preventative factor, and just for anyone who wants to grow personally or understand themselves, right? Because I think that's a massive strength. Once we understand ourselves or have a self-awareness about ourselves, you know, we might then know what career we'd like, or we might know the type of relationships we like, and then therefore set boundaries with, you know, relationships we're not so keen on. So I guess it's that. And the last thing I wanted to mention is just making therapy accessible. So video call sessions are sort of something I'm quite fond of, because it allows me to access people across the world, which I love.
Thank you so much for answering our questions and sharing a bit about yourself and your work with us today.